Biotech firm Colossal Biosciences has their nose in the business of just about every extinct creature at this point in 2024. It's not a bad thing, especially since their work is so promising. The company isn't only trying to bring things back from extinction, they are also helping to prevent some animals from going the way of the dodo. The Texas-based firm is involved in a project right now to restore the Victorian grassland earless dragon. It was feared extinct until a specimen was found this year, much to the delight of conservationists. When the company heard about the discovery, they committed a massive amount of money to save the dragon. It isn't quite extinct, but it is considered critically endangered. The Victorian grassland earless dragon hadn't been seen since 1969. Scientists in Australia assumed it was as good as gone. It was only spotted by a sightseer who happened upon it totally by chance. Now the Melbourne Zoo is helping to build a quarantine breeding center to help boost the species' numbers. It's partnered with Colossal Biosciences as a part of their Lost Species initiative. The dragon isn't particularly big, it's not going to breathe fire, and it definitely isn't going to eat any brave knights. It's only a few inches long, pushed to extinction by foxes and feral cats. It wasn't necessarily humans this time, at least not on purpose. Though I admit that humans were the ones who introduced the foxes and cats to Australia in the first place. The dodo bird has been extinct for less than 400 years. Dinosaurs have been gone for at least 66 million. Yet if scientists get their way, dodo birds could become T-Rex food by 2050. The work is already being done, as is proof by the chicken that was recently transformed into a partial dino. Yes, it is already happening. Scientists genetically tweaked chicken embryos so that the embryos grew snouts instead of beaks. Dinosaur snouts, to be specific. Paleontologist Bart Anjan-Bular at the University of Chicago said the transition from snout to beak was one of the most radical changes. Otherwise, avians are still hugely similar to their dinosaur relatives. To create a Tyrannosaurus rex, scientists simply need to undo evolution. This starts with something simple like breeding chickens that have snouts instead of beaks. Then it's a matter of continuing to reverse smaller and smaller changes. All of this until a mutated chicken lays an egg, and from that egg comes a tiny dinosaur. They won't be the size of Godzilla, much to everyone's disappointment and relief. If scientists can work around the ethical roadblocks currently hampering their research, the first reborn dinosaurs will be fairly small. The first dinosaur will be a biological T-Rex, only the size standard chicken. Do you remember a few years ago when Elon Musk told everybody that humans would be living on Mars by 2025? Well, it's clearly not happening, as I'm sure you know. Elon Musk also claimed 1 million people will live on Mars by 2050, which seems unlikely, but what do you think? The reason I want to mention Elon Musk and his predictions is that Colossal Biosciences has been biting off a lot lately. They've already promised to bring back the dodo bird, the woolly mammoth, and now the Tasmanian tiger. Can they really do it? The Tasmanian tiger has been extinct for 100 years. Out of all the other creatures that Ben Lamb and his company are trying to bring back from the grave, Tasmanian tigers are the freshest. Scientists were able to easily extract DNA and RNA from the desiccated skin and muscle tissue of a preserved corpse at the museum in Sweden. This was a lot easier than harvesting woolly mammoths frozen in permafrost. It was the difference between pulling fresh carrots out of the ground and buying them already cooked from the grocery store. The Tasmanian tiger is also known as the thylacine. Take a look at the images of the extinct animal and tell me it isn't the most amazing marsupial/dog/cat creature thing that you've ever seen. Sadly, it disappeared 2,000 years ago from its homeland in Australia, where it lived with all the other wacky animals. The thylacine survived only on the isolated island of Tasmania. It was the only marsupial apex predator on the planet. It played a crucial role in maintaining the natural order of Tasmania. When humans showed up, they noticed the peculiar animal and hunted it into extinction. The biggest issue for humans was that the coyote-sized marsupial allegedly feasted on their livestock. European settlers in the 1800s did not take kindly to anything that interfered with their goats and chickens and cows, so they made a concentrated effort to wipe them out. However, scientists don't think Tasmanian tigers were responsible. Tasmanian tigers were naturally shy, nocturnal beasts. The loss of European livestock likely had nothing to do with thylacines. Times were changing in the early 1900s, and people were becoming more aware of the dangers of extinction. Tasmanian tigers were given protected status, meaning it was illegal to hunt them. But it was too late. In 1936, the very last Tasmanian tiger died from exposure because it was kept in cruel and barbaric conditions at the Beaumaris Zoo in Hobart. I know it's super sad and depressing, but it's part of history. It's also something that has been happening since long before the European settlers ate all the dodo birds. Scientists believe Tasmanian tigers went extinct from Australia due to the arrival of the indigenous population. There is good news, though. I'm not going to leave you with doom and gloom. Andrew Pask from the University of Melbourne is hard at work trying to bring these amazing animals back from extinction. Andrew is the leader of the Thylacine Integrated Genetic Restoration Research Team, or TIGER. Andrew has already worked to resurrect a single Tasmanian tiger gene in the embryo of a mouse. This was back in 2005, marking the first time that anything like it had been done. Now Andrew is working closely with Ben Lamb from Colossal Biosciences. Together, there is real hope the Tasmanian tiger will live again. Colossal is currently working on a full-stage artificial womb to gestate and develop a live baby. All of this talk about bringing back large animals, and I haven't even mentioned the attempt to de-extinct certain antibiotics. It's an effort that could save lives, but doesn't appear much in the media because, to be truthful, antibiotics just aren't as exciting as woolly mammoths. Scientists at the University of Pennsylvania are working hard to bring back tiny molecules with antibiotic properties from an unexpected source. The molecules come from extinct organisms, and by organisms, I mean our good friends the Neanderthals, who went extinct about 40,000 years ago. Scientists are calling it molecular de-extinction. But what's the point? And how do you even bring back something as small as a molecule from the void of extinction? The how involves artificial intelligence. Scientists at the university trained an AI model to discover which molecules could make effective antibiotics for modern humans. The algorithm identified extremely strong candidates from the DNA of Neanderthals. Next, it was really easy. Scientists went to their lab and created the molecules, then tested them on infected mice. Sure enough, the molecules fought off bacterial infections. These are molecules that were present in the bodies of Neanderthals, but no longer exist in the bodies of modern Homo sapiens. It's a lot easier to de-extinct one molecule than an entire body filled with billions of molecules. Now I'm going to scare you just a little bit. I know we're all still anxious after the disaster that was COVID, but according to the CDC, there is an even worse problem on the horizon. The Center for Disease Control has warned very recently that humanity is entering an era in which antibiotics are useless. We've created the disaster by overusing antibiotics. And viruses are smart. They mutate and change. Antibiotics are everywhere, used to treat humans, animals, and crops. Bacteria have been hard at work adapting to modern drugs, morphing into superbugs that are impervious to all available antibiotics. By the time you are finished watching this video, at least one person in the United States will have died from an infection that was previously treatable by antibiotics. Whoa, that is an intensely scary thought. Things that used to save lives are now no more effective than a placebo. A major UN report warned humanity that by 2050, 10 million people a year will die because antibiotics don't work anymore. Coming to the rescue is AI and, seriously, unexpectedly, dead cavemen. Molecular de-extinction could lead to a whole new generation of antibiotics that modern bacteria hasn't had a chance to adapt to yet. Millions of lives could be saved thanks to the blood of our ancient ancestors. A dog breeder in Oregon is trying to resurrect ancient direwolves through selective breeding. Her name is Lois Schwartz, and she has been at it for the last 30 years. The results of her work are outstanding. She has managed to create an entirely new dog that she named the American Alsatian. The adorable dog isn't exactly a dire wolf. Still, it's the closest thing to a dire wolf that someone today can have as a trusted companion. Lois's goal was to create an enormous dog similar in size to the Ice Age wolf, but way less frightening and a lot cuddlier. You may have heard of dire wolves before in fantasy, and especially in Game of Thrones, but the giant beasts were once very real animals. Unlike dragons and White Walkers, dire wolves roamed the chilly landscape of North America 125,000 years ago. When the world was a giant ice cube, they lived as far south as South America. There may have even been primitive human ancestors who tamed these creatures. Scientists call them Canis dirus, with the last of their kind going extinct about 10,000 years ago. Fossils of dire wolves were discovered in Indiana in the 1850s. Then more in the La Brea tar pits near downtown Los Angeles. Thanks to the large number of fossils, scientists have a very good idea of what dire wolves looked like. They were bigger than modern wolves, with larger heads, stronger jaws, and a longer body. Adult dire wolves could grow to over 6 feet long. Let's get back to Lois for a moment. In the 1980s, she was struck by an epiphany. Her new goal in life was to create a large dog that looks like a ferocious beast, but has the personality of a golden retriever. Thus began her work on the Dire Wolf Project. It isn't a terrible idea, and in fact, I kind of want one now. Who wouldn't want a prehistoric predator with the peaceful temperament of a lab? Though if I had the choice between a dire wolf and a chicken-sized T-Rex, I don't know, I think I'd be torn. Which one would you want? Lois started with an Alaskan Malamute. She added English Mastiffs for bulkier bones, Pyrenees dogs for more bulk, and Irish Wolfhounds for extra length and height. After 30 years, she is left with a shaggy gray dog that isn't quite a dire wolf, but is the next best thing. Lois has already sold over 3,000 puppies, with hundreds of people still on the waiting list. She and her daughter are the only breeders on the planet with these unique canines. It's one thing to slowly mutate a chicken until it's a tiny T-Rex, but what about growing a biologically correct dinosaur from a fossilized embryo? It's a possibility that could be even more reliable than making tiny Rex chickens. In 2010, paleontologists discovered a small cluster of dinosaur embryos in China. It was a huge deal because for the first time, scientists could study a dinosaur while in its embryonic stage. Researchers were shocked to find that dinosaurs underwent almost an identical pattern of bone growth as modern birds. The eggs added additional proof that birds are uncannily similar to dinosaurs. But the discoveries weren't done rolling in yet. That same year, a nesting site was discovered with 200 bones from juvenile plant eaters and fragmented eggshells, plus more embryos in various stages of development. These long-necked dinosaurs died about 190 million years ago. Scientists were able to reconstruct their growth stage by stage because of the sheer number of remains. But what about bringing these things back from the dead? We want dinosaur pets and we want them now, right? Cloning dinosaur DNA, like in Jurassic Park, is still impossible. There also isn't any dinosaur DNA to speak of. Although incredible fossils have been found, and lots of eggs since 2010, there isn't a piece of dino DNA anywhere. The most recent heart palpitation of excitement involved Chinese scientists scraping preserved nuclei from dinosaur femur cells. It was close, but they still didn't confirm DNA. Scientists have looked through fossilized cartilage, in embryos, and deep within bones. But without the physical DNA, there is no way that embryos can be cloned to create a biologically correct dinosaur.